The Discourse starts right now with Cheryl Oates and Erika Baroudis.
Well, welcome to The Discourse for our final countdown episode. I feel like we need like the final countdown playing. Anyways.
And now we have it.
Perfect. Well, if you thought the last week of the campaign was going to be a snooze, think again. The Liberals are barely hanging on. The Tories are charging through. But is it too late? And meanwhile, nobody is asking what the NDP is doing because nobody cares. Not even to come out for the leader Jagmeet Singh at a rally in Edmonton earlier this week. But seriously, if you've already voted, and it shows that there's a lot of people that went to the advance polls this past Easter weekend, you probably aren't looking line by line to the Liberal or the Conservative budgets, which they put out earlier this week. But if you care, Mark Carney's really showing his true colors by presenting a very expensive, and when I say very, I mean like not Justin Trudeau's very, but like $130 billion more than Justin Trudeau expensive. Meanwhile, my good friends over at the Conservative Party have found $125 billion in savings cut, which is a Liberal deficit by 70% in 4 years. What say you, Cheryl?
I say that is complete lunacy, and I am so happy for you and your world of make-believe in this final week of the campaign.
Oh, that's because you didn't read the budgets, but those are the numbers.
Oh, I did.
They're reported.
I read them.
$255 billion extra deficit that we're going to have after if the Liberals win. Go on.
Okay, whatever you got to tell yourself in this last week.
On.
Like I have noticed, you're not the only one who's feeling extra sensitive, extra snarky,
yeah,
in this last week, which is not unusual in the last week of a campaign. Campaigns are hard, campaigns are long, especially when you're not the party that's sitting in the front. But just for the sake of accuracy, it's probably worth just going back to some of the things you said. Conservatives surging, not really how I would describe it. I do think the Conservatives have had a little uptick. And
closing the gap.
Well, like they've come
probably
up a
too
point.
Late. That's fine.
But even a point, like with their vote efficiency, is not going to like bring them close to government. So yes, I do think there's been a few voters who moved Liberal come back to the Conservatives in this final week. Will it be consequential? Unlikely, I think, to be consequential at this point. And the Liberals are holding pretty steady. Like they might have lost, if you look at the poll aggregators, maybe they lost 1 point, but like for the most part, they're holding pretty steady. And also I wanted to say, I actually think everybody's talking about the NDP because Conservatives, everywhere I go, Conservatives are saying, come on, NDP. We need an NDP surge. I have never had so much NDP support from Conservatives in my life. And the other question is, of course, like how do the NDP do? Do they hold party status and what does the future look like? So, I mean, I get that we're not talking about the possibility of the Democrats forming government in this election, but I do think a lot of people are talking about the NDP, and a lot of New Democrats now feel more comfortable taking their vote back to their party because they believe that Mark Carney has a majority.
Listen, I've always said I get how people are New Democrats because you know what you believe in. I get why people are Conservatives. I have no effing clue. If my dad is listening, I didn't swear. That's what he told me as feedback. It's like your dad gives you like constructive feedback. My dad tells me to not be the potty mouth that I am. But I will say, like, I get it. I have no effing clue why people vote Liberal. And like, I ask people and they're like, well, it's not Justin Trudeau. And I'm like, well, it is. It's the same budget platform plus a bunch of billions of dollars. It's like actually what you didn't really like about Justin Trudeau, even worse. I think that this might be the most strategic catfishing of all time. And that all these people will then wake up and should he become the prime minister, will be like, damn, we were catfished. And then unfortunately, your party and my party will sit there and be like, well, we told you so, but no one was listening to yours. And apparently our vote was locked in and she might not grow.
Yeah, might have reached its ceiling. I kind of disagree. I do think like it's not necessarily this shouldn't be confused with people like all of a sudden feeling like this emotional allegiance to Liberals. I think that there was, like we've talked about lots, and the country has talked about, a lot of fatigue with Justin Trudeau. Obviously, a lot of negative sentiments to Justin Trudeau. People were not interested in seeing Justin Trudeau lead the country anymore. But given the choice between someone else and the Liberals and Pierre Poilievre, they also weren't comfortable choosing Pierre Poilievre. At least a big group of people were not comfortable choosing Pierre Poilievre. And I don't think Mark Carney has pretended to be something he's not. Like the guy
A
has
conservative
basically,
at one point.
the guy has basically just run on his resume. Like it's not like he ran out there like with the energy and moved rooms and made big promises. Like he's basically run on his resume. And his platform is, in terms of like flashy election gifts, there's not a lot of it.
But there's just a lot of spend. He came out first 2 days as like, oh, I'm a conservative. I look the same as Pierre Poilievre from my policies, which I think actually worked. It drew back a lot of people that really just wanted some fiscal accountability. But then you look at his plan, and again, I think it was strategic by the Liberals to put out after. If I was giving the Conservatives advice, I would have said, release yours before the debate. They didn't do that either. Yeah. And so they didn't do that either, because I do think that there's some good costing and really, fleshing out some of the criticism of Pierre that he didn't really have a plan. Now we have Mark Carney, who's like overspending. Like people are saying, oh, well, he's running on his resume, which you and I both know, telling candidates they always want to run on their resume. It's not great. He's running on a banker resume where he's now like burning money. Like you look at that budget and that's a lot of spend. Plus he also ran on I'm not Justin Trudeau, and he's using Justin Trudeau's platform.
Well, so they're both using the parliamentary budget officer's like baseline. I think like when I look at the Liberals' platform, I see a really strategic document. Like I think they've put something in the window that tries to bring the conversation back to Donald Trump and how Canada positions itself against economic threat, but also makes it really hard to contrast between the two. And I get that you're grasping at like, the Conservatives are spending less than the Liberals are spending. But if you look at what Canada gets for what the Liberals are spending, it's like a hard story for the Conservatives to argue with. I mean, the biggest part of their platform, the biggest part of their spend is a tax cut and a reversal of the capital gains tax. That is the biggest part, which are both things that Pierre Poilievre is either running on or called for. And then the majority of the rest of the spending is in defense, in housing, and in national infrastructure projects. Also, things that's really hard for the Conservatives to argue with. So like, yes, there's more spending in there, but also the Liberal budget doesn't include predicted economic activity from their proposals, which is really hard to do. And the Conservatives' budget includes that, which is why their balance sheet looks better, because they're magically imagining the economic activity their policies will spur.
But if you were looking at this and you were in comms, there is a story to be told, which is we're cutting back on a bunch of bureaucracy, inflated stuff, and we're opening up our economic advantage that we have by creating new revenue streams, which is the Conservative narrative. I don't think that that's the Liberal one. Like it doesn't forecast. And the reason I don't think it forecasts anything, but I'm just saying like, so to me, there is a difference. Sure, they have played some conservative cards, but when you look at what they're going to spend, they're not going to put more money back in the pockets. Like a lot of their, what we're calling money back in people's pockets is through grants and hypotheticals.
Except for the tax cut.
Well, yeah. And the tax cut was an early on, same as the Conservatives, less some. But when you look at like what he's going to do to stimulate the economy, he's throwing a bunch of money at inflation reduction, but not actually addressing the long-term game. He is definitely, I will say, the Liberals are playing the short game. I think the Conservative projections are playing the long game. And so I do think from a comms perspective, there is a story to tell. Do I think either is doing maybe the best job? Probably not. And I guess my big question for you is like, does it even matter at this point? Like, did it matter that the Liberals are decimating what I believe like our economy and really not going to be able to get us out of this deficit, which I get that an average Canadian might not really care about the debt versus deficit versus what it is in 4 years because it's, not maybe touching you immediately. But do people even care? Is this even going to impact it doing this late in the game?
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to say on the conservative plan, because I don't see this as a long-term plan. Like, I think, Pierre Poilievre has had 2 years to play the, oppositional party, to talk about what the government's doing wrong. And what people have been waiting for is him to say, and I have a better plan. And if he truly wanted to lead and say, I deserve to be government, he should have come out with his plan first, one, before the debate, and he should have come out before the other parties. Dropping it after advance voting has closed looks like you have something to hide. And then if you look closely at the plan, like, yes, of course, people in Western Canada love to hear, we're going to build pipelines in record time. We're going to like stand them up and dig them in, and we're going to have product running through them in a year. And then also in the same platform say, we respect Quebec and we want to work with First Nations. To me, that's just a fantasy world. Like, you can't say both of those things at the same time. And the economic activity that they're spurring, like economists have said, this is magical thinking. And also, typically, when you make moves that spur economic growth, you don't see it immediately in your budget. Like, that is long-term planning, but in this budget, it shows up as short-term return on investment.
Yeah, I will say though, on the other hand, and economists have also said that this liberal plan is detrimental to our economy. It's detrimental. So I guess it just depends which economist we're looking at and from what angle. But I mean, at the same time, I think what you're criticizing Pierre for is you've got to criticize Carney for then, which is we're going to create pipelines, but we're not going to do the things needed to do that, right? And he was very different in his approach and was called out by Blanchette on having one thing to say about how he's going to work with Quebec in his French debate versus English. So again, I do agree. Like I said, my strategy would have been to release that before. You and I both lived through a lot of campaigns where you do want to use that if it's good and you think it's going to help you. And I think in this case, Pierre should have saw it as that, drop it before the debate, because again, like we've seen really high numbers. I think that's just society also not wanting to go to election, like vote on election day and getting to advance polls. It was also Easter, so people maybe were around and had more time. Whatever it is, like advance polls, there was more people, there was a lot of people out. So it's like, why drop it now? I can get why the Liberals can, because it's a dumpster fire. But for the Conservatives, weird strategy. However, I don't think he needed to do it much more than that. Like, you don't want to, was it I can't remember, was it Jim Prentice or something that dropped it on day one?
No, he released his budget and then ran on it.
Oh, right. Sorry, that's what he did. But there was someone else that dropped a budget or their whole campaign plan pretty early on. Oh, maybe it
We
was
did in
Skinner.
Saskatchewan.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just, yeah. So Saskatchewan. So like, that's a different strategy, and that's an opposition strategy. I don't know if I think that works, because maybe if we're going off Brian Topp's like people are paying attention, but I think doing it closer to the debate when people are actually maybe hearing some of your announcements, it might put proof in the pudding. Either way, like, again, coming back, does it even matter? Does this going to impact? Like, again, I don't feel all of my friends that saw this were like, well, I already voted. Like, well,
I mean,
sweet.
I don't think it matters in terms of like this last period of the campaign. Like, we have the first period of the campaign, which is like, this is who we are. This is why you should like us. And then you have the second period, which is like, this is why you should vote for us and not vote for them. And then this period of the campaign is like, get people out and motivated to vote for you. Like, remind them that their vote matters. I don't think I don't think any of the platforms do anything to motivate people who are already decided voters to get out and vote. But like, the day that a platform is read the most is the day after a government is elected. And so for the Liberals, like, this is
huge now.
This 60-page document is a blueprint for, the mandates for ministers, the mandate for Mark Carney. Like, this is how they will run for the next term. And so
should they win,
I don't think that it matters in terms of like moving vote, but I think it still matters that they put out a platform.
You know what? And just to kind of close this out, I think it also is very much speaks to the debate. We talked about this debate matters. It's like seeing, I don't think either of them lost any points, really, even though I think that Mark Carney had some slip ups and underhand pitched some stuff. And he was also taking all the hits, and rightfully so, as the prime minister or the government. So that's not unsurprising. But yeah, I actually was like, what a freaking boring. I do want to ask you, what was Jagmeet Singh trying to do? Like, during that debate, yeah, he's like, I'm like, dude, like, I think he was just trying to fuck up people's, I'm sorry, Dad, sound bites. of like their social media clips was really what it sounded like he was doing, because he'd jump in and interject, which I thought was rude because everyone else was actually being quite polite with the moderator and waiting their turn. And then like, if you didn't follow, do you know who he's trying to steal votes from? Because it was like a spray and pray tactic that I have no idea if he realizes that he can't get conservative votes, but he could get liberal votes.
Okay, so one, I think it's quite comical that you are offended by Jagmeet interrupting people. We'll just leave that there.
Because I interrupt people? Is that why? Huh?
Yes.
I'm not on a podium. See?
Okay.
Remember? I'm not going to be the podium person. You are. I'm not going to let you talk anymore.
Now we'll go into the strategy, which I think actually was executed quite well for the federal NDP. I mean, Jagmeet Singh is not standing on stage asking voters, please elect me prime minister because I'm the best person to take on Donald Trump, or I'm the person that's going to fix affordability for you. His pitch to voters, and this isn't nuanced anymore, this is literally what he's saying, is whoever is in government, whether it be Mark Carney or whether it be Pierre Poilievre, we do not trust them. If you voted NDP, it's likely you do not trust them to protect the things that you care about most. And although, yes, it's super annoying to watch a debate and have someone be like, what about this? What about this? Like talking over you and needling at you. That is what New Democrats are looking for from their party in parliament. I want Jagmeet to stand up every day and say, what about healthcare? What about healthcare? What about pharmacare? What about dental care? And that will be really annoying, but that is how the NDP has gotten things done in the past. And that was evident in this last 4 years as well, that this is how we got big things done, by being annoying and holding those parties accountable. And so this was his chance to demonstrate it in real time in a debate for New Democrat supporters to see.
And is it his last time? Because isn't he in third place? So he personally will not be standing in the House being, what about healthcare? What about this? He'll be sitting on his couch with his pension.
Beside the point. But
no, I'm holding you account. Is he going to win his seat? It doesn't look like it. He's in third place. So cool. I get your point. But like, what happens with the NDP? Like you guys,
okay, but someone else,
seats.
if it's not Jagmeet, we're not going to win 3 seats. We're going to win more than 3 seats. Come on. The NDP will outperform the current aggregators. Like if you look at the NDP strategy, if you look historically at the NDP's vote efficiency, if you look at the NDP's ground game, like we're not running to govern here, but the NDP will outperform current poll aggregators and seat predictions. And yeah, it's a tough election. It will be a tough result. Certainly, like every party, there's a conversation to be had, and I'm not going to predetermine what happens with Jagmeet Singh, but if he's not in the House, someone else will be. And that is the job of the New Democrats, to go hold those parties accountable. And if it's not him, it will be the next leader.
One of the 3 of them, right? Do you have a seat projection? What is it? And have you voted yet? And how are you voting? Because I voted, and I voted for the Conservatives.
Wow. There's so many questions in there.
But you're going to answer them all.
I'm not sure exactly what my seat prediction is. Like, I know that the party believes that they can maintain party status, and that means holding seats on the island. It means holding seats in the Lower Mainland. It means holding their Edmonton seats, holding Southwest Ontario and a couple in Manitoba and a seat in Quebec, and that gets them kind of like just over the line. But like some of it, you have to see what happens on election day, right? Like, or what's happened in the advanced polls. Like, you're not going to see it. These local dynamics will not be reflected in the poll aggregator. I haven't voted yet. I will vote on election day. What's that?
Which one? Did you see that in Pierre Poilievre's riding, there's 95 people running?
Yeah.
I went to mine, and I was actually surprised at how many other people were on there. Okay,
that's
but
that protest campaign.
Are you doing a protest vote? Speaking of protest,
I would never protest vote.
So what I'm hearing is I vote for NDP because you are.
Listen, I think there's a lot of reasons to vote for the NDP, and especially for New Democrats that see Mark Carney in a comfortable position. It's a much nicer position to be able to not cast your ballot as a protest vote or as to stop the most evil candidate, but instead to be able to vote with your heart and vote about the things that you care about. That is a lovely position to be in.
Listen, I completely agree.
Which is why you voted People's Party.
I didn't. I voted for Saeed Ahmed with the Conservative Party of Canada. But there is people I know that did. And I think you know people that did. So we'll see about the People's Party, because that was one that actually cost some ridings in Alberta at the last election. But speaking of Alberta, maybe we can talk about how I'm going to have an Alberta passport. and we're going to become our own place, you know?
And
Are you
I
going to live here
wish you
still?
luck. I wish you luck using that passport to get through to Canada's coast in British Columbia.
Well, I'll just jump on the pipeline that we'll also somehow have built. You know,
And
it'll be great.
was it conservatives that built that pipeline? I can't remember.
No, it wasn't.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Yes, Rachel physically got out there.
I got pictures
all
of her
of
in a
you
hard
guys,
hat.
all of you. Everyone hates being in a hard hat, so that's mean of you.
Yeah.
Hopefully
Indeed.
she can pull it off. I hope that you find that while you're editing and you throw that sucker in there.
Okay.
But yeah, in all seriousness, if you don't follow what we're talking about, we are talking about what everyone's been asking Cheryl on panels about, and just getting my validation on panels. But no, seriously, we're talking about this, all the separatist chatter that everyone else in the country doesn't care about Alberta ever until they're like, hey, do you guys want to leave? Are you pissed off? Are you going to become the 51st state? And even though every party and leader from across the political spectrum has said no, it's still coming up in conversation in Alberta. So
let's just first talk about why it's coming up in conversation. And I do find this interesting because, truthfully, I would love to just say, let's not lend credibility to this movement. Those are air quotes for people listening on audio.
They could tell by your lower voice.
Okay. This movement, let's not give credibility to it. Let's just skip over it. Like, I don't want to even pretend it's a real thing. But truthfully, I do want to talk about it because I want to kill it before it even people even believe it's a real thing. And the fact that I've been asked about it in all these different places, in all these different circumstances, tells me that for some reason it's breaking through a little bit. And I would love to just talk about why this is a terrible idea before we even get to the point of considering it. But it's also worth talking about why we're here in the first place. And yes, we know that like long sentiments in Alberta of feeling like there's too much Ottawa, Alberta that gets left out, we're not appreciated, even though we make incredible contributions to Canada's GDP, and that we don't get the credit that we deserve. And so this like animosity to Ottawa is long lived in Alberta, and every premier from the beginning of time has leveraged it. But this premier specifically has, I think, leveraged it a little bit more by, one, promising a unity crisis to Mark Carney should he become prime minister and not fulfill her list of demands. And then second, recently, by basically crowdsourcing referendum questions that are just happen to be timed following the election of a majority Liberal government. So although I know she hasn't said this is on the table, she hasn't actually killed it either. She offered a path for citizens of Alberta to put this on the table for referendum if they choose to do it.
Yeah,
You were very patient there, by the way.
I was trying to choose the right words because a referendum, I think I've said, is sometimes kind of bullshit. Like we've heard it a lot. We've seen it happen. Kenny tried it, even on daylight savings. Like I do think it's hard to get people to understand the referendum, understand what's at stake. I know that we do have a large contingent of frustrated people and continue to always have in Alberta. Like that's why our leaders, regardless of political stripe, stand up to Ottawa because we are the bread and butter of our economy. And sometimes we're not treated even as an equal partner, let alone one that's really carrying a lot of other folks. So we're like kind of the captain of the team, but we're treated like we're like fourth line sometimes. And so I can get that sentiment. I mean, I grew up in Saskatchewan. We don't have that same sentiment of like, I'm Saskatchewan first, Canadian second. I've lived in Alberta for even longer now, and that is actually a thing here. So I get that a lot of people don't understand why is Alberta like this, but it's because like there is a bigger identity, I think, than, I mean, the two provinces I've lived in, which people think are almost the same, where like there's a lot of pride behind being from Alberta. But when we continuously are treated this way, it's like, when is enough enough? And so I do think that the premier is recognizing that. There's not much difference from what Kenny has said or done versus it's more how they say it and what they're willing to do. Yeah. And also probably what they don't say. But I don't know if, I don't think she wants it to get there. I think being the premier of Alberta is her happy place. I don't think she's trying to be prime minister. I don't think she's trying to form our own country or separate or whatever that looks like. Because again, all of these people have said we're also very proud to be Canadian, but I think we're coming to a line where after 9 years, Alberta's really felt it. A lot of Albertans have really felt it. And I think the frustration, even though democratic, of the potential of having a liberal government for another 4 years, especially if you look at what it looks like from even like the Privy Council report that basically refers to us as being in Hunger Games by 2040 if we continue down the path of spending, printing money, and not getting our fiscal house in line of like the dire society that we'll live in. That there's just like a lot of frustration from, but I think it's like that there's a lot of frustration from people in Alberta about like what this really means for them. So I think she's standing up and speaking for that voice. Like, I know you're proud Albertan, you're a proud Canadian, I am too, but I do feel like I'm kind of at my wit's end about how our federation is working / not working, and continuing down the same path for 4 years is quite sad and
Like,
frustrating.
and I don't quite see it that way. Like, truthfully, I think that most Albertans see themselves as Canadians first, and polling will back that up. I mean, if you
Yeah,
look across
25. Yeah.
Canada, Albertans who are feeling Albertan first and Canadian second, or Albertans who are interested in exploring separation, obviously that's higher in Alberta than the rest of the country. But overall, the majority of Albertans, if we believe the polling, do not want to separate from Canada. And it's a
And
really vocal minority of people who are raising the issue. And of course, for media, it's a really interesting issue to cover.
Mhm.
But truthfully, I don't think majority of people are interested in this conversation.
No, and I don't think, the premier's trying to take it here. I think it's making it aware is like me. I am like a big part of me is Alberta first because I feel like Alberta treats me really well, whereas I am in a state where Canada and how our province has been treated, how we're running and operating and not going off of creation of opportunity of the individual is making it really hard. That doesn't mean I'm not Canada first, or I don't want to separate, and I'll put that on the record. Like, I think so that 25%, you're right. The 25% is not growing of people that would want to separate, but I think that Alberta is feeling even more alienated, and that like our resources are being exploited, that we're being taken advantage of. And that was a lot of the motivation of change before. I think that what we have to deal with and why this is such a big thing now isn't that I think we're going to go to a separation referendum. But even when I have friends that live in BC and Saskatchewan are like, I want to move to Alberta if you guys are separating, I think that there is a larger animosity towards how Canadians across different jurisdictions are being treated differently.
And I completely agree with that. Like, I know that I have said the animosity towards Ottawa and Albertans' emotions around Ottawa and Alberta's independence and being recognized for economic contributions, that is, I mean, widely shared in Alberta and has been for decades. I think what bothers me is that Danielle Smith hasn't killed this. And I mean, she's a skilled politician. I watched her answer a question on chemtrails that was like executed beautifully, because she didn't say you are crazy if you believe in chemtrails. She let the person talk. She acknowledged their question. She said, you know what, I'll look into that. And like, for people like me, I'm like, no, you're the premier. You say chemtrails, this is a conspiracy theory that's not real. But Danielle Smith walks this line where she holds people on one side in, and she also lets people who have more extreme ideas stay in the bubble with her. And I think that's what she's doing with the separation talk as well.
I think it's actually just like she's still in that listening phase because, again, we're not at the federal election. This could all be quite a different tone come Monday. The Conservatives win. Alberta can start to repair their relationship with the federal government and find alignment on issues that matter, such as pipelines. And that there is like, it is actually, and I know that I talk to maybe a different population than you do, but there is a lot of people, especially even outside of the province, that are like, man, like, this is wild. And I've never been so frustrated with how our country operates, not as like we are not a one, we are the best place to live. However, again, the discrepancies and the exploitation, I think, is heightened right now. And people just want to know that they can vent about it. And so I think she's in her, like, knowing that she does consult and listen to maybe more people than she should sometimes. She is in that listening phase because I think that she wants to be able to come in after whoever is elected and manage it from there, as opposed to uh, angering this group even more in the time being. But I think it's like she's taking this calculated risk. And as we always say, we'll see how this turns out.
The interesting thing to me about all of this is like this whole thing is built around like Alberta is going to be left out again because there's another Liberal government and Alberta doesn't like Liberal governments. But right now, the Liberals are sitting higher in the polls in Alberta than they were in 2015, which doesn't say to me, like this is concentrated in the cities, of course, but that doesn't say to me Albertans will be writ large pissed off that the Liberals are reelected. Like every single seat in Alberta, or sorry, every single seat in Edmonton is currently in play. Like if the stars align for the Liberals, there's no Conservative seats in Edmonton. The Liberals could win 4 seats in Calgary. Like it will be much harder for Danielle Smith to lead Alberta against a Liberal government if there's so many Liberal seats in the major cities. That just tells you like 30% of Albertans actually are happy that these guys got reelected.
And I don't know, again, this might be a strategic vote, and I'd love to see where the Liberals are. I think we do have a lot of progressives in our province, or more left-leaning individuals that maybe this time aren't voting NDP. We have a few ridings where usually the vote split, or the level of the NDP either elect the Conservative or the Liberal based, again, on that vote split. I think that there's a little bit more of that catfishing happening where people are like, I'm not going to vote for the people I usually vote for, or the people I vote for even provincially, because I'm either anti-conservative or I just think that the Liberals are going to win. I think it's going to be very interesting. Maybe it's just because from everyone from Ontario who are pretend conservatives moved here and they're actually Liberals and now they're voting for Liberals in our urban centers. But
yeah. I mean, I don't think the motivation, like in the grand scheme of things, the motivation for voting Liberal in Alberta doesn't really matter. My point really is that if we have more seats, more Liberal seats in Alberta than we've had in decades, Danielle Smith's positioning on this like anti-Ottawa, anti-Liberal government messaging just becomes so much more difficult. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And again, like, I don't think that because we have progressive doesn't mean that, like, or that we do or don't means a separatist number is going to go up. I think definitely that group is going to possibly get louder. I don't think it's going to be, put it over a threshold of 50% in any way, shape, or form, because I think a lot of people, but I think it's just reflection of the discontent that many people feel, sometimes regardless of ideology, is how our relationship currently is with Ottawa and how our federalism is let's call it not working. But you're right. I think she does have to pick a lane at some point to give certainty to Albertans of, is she going to be very aggressive against a Liberal government, or is she going to, concede on some things to keep peace with a Conservative government? It's tough. She's got to pick a lane, but I think she's waiting to see what happens in the election. And again, it's a riskier lane if there is more Liberal or NDP seats than we've currently seen in Alberta.
Well, she's going to have to pick that lane before she calls an early election, right?
I don't know where you hear this shit, but
so there is a rumbling, and it's not without foundation. There is a rumbling that Danielle Smith will not wait until 2027, which is when Alberta is next supposed to go to the polls, but that she will call an election in 2026, which is next year. And, there's never a province anywhere where there isn't an early election rumor. So, we're going to hear it no matter what. But I do think there's some credibility to this, partly because the UCP changed the set legislation season in Alberta. It was the spring. Now it's the fall to accommodate for wildfires. So really the government has a choice. Do they go 6 months later, or do they go 6 months earlier? And indications at this point about, if you look at the polls, Danielle Smith is sitting in a nice position in the polls. There's no reason for her to wait an extra 6 months. And so that takes us to fall 2026.
So if you're looking today, she is sitting good in the polling numbers. She's had a lot of success from her standing up to some of the tariffs or her diplomatic approach, as she calls it, going down to Washington and the States. So I do think I get why there's rumors saying she'd go early because, to be honest, like, I need to ask you, like, I know you were more in Rachel's camp, like you were working for her versus Naheed, but like, honestly, I have no idea. Like, you couldn't ask at this point. I would say go early because he is such a weak opposition member. And so when you look at like how he's defending Albertans, how he would lead as a leader, like, I think that's also helping Danielle Smith. I would not, regardless, like, unless there's some amazing internal polls or like go now.
That would be
I
crazy.
still think you would. No, I'm sorry. Like, I mean, like going early, you'd have to see stuff. But like, Nenshi is making it really easy for her to look good because I have no idea what this guy does all day. Like, he's almost sitting there being like, "Mwahaha, I hope this AHS thing falls to chaos," and that's like his strategy. I don't understand. Like, and I'm biased for sure, but I'd give credit where credit is due. I've given Rachel a lot of credit in her past. I have no idea what he is doing as a strategy for talking to Albertans or even like finding the right pushback on government. It's like he's sitting there just hoping that the AHS scandal folds his way and he'll scream and shout, and that's what he's going to run on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. I would like to see the NDP far more forceful in terms of raising the issues around the AHS scandal, in terms of, raising the issues of the day, in terms of, having something to say about all of the UCP's actions. I am hopeful. Like, I mean, I've been disappointed in the lack of, I don't know, visual, like no one can see them. And I hear that feedback a lot, that like no one can see what they're doing. I've been disappointed in that. I do think they can turn it around. Like, even if the election, like, let's just hypothesize the election is going to go in fall 26. Like, there is a giant professional machine in Alberta that could get its shit together for that election, but they would have to start doing it right now. And I haven't seen that movement yet, but it's not impossible. They just, I mean, they have to decide to do it.
But we also said this like 6 months ago, is he's got to get his comms in order. And so it's like, there's no time like the present. I mean, keep doing what you're doing, Nenshi, because it's really helping us. Like, I think the UCP is going to have its best quarter of fundraising ever in history. And we'll see what I said UCP, right? Not NDP, NDP. And we'll see what the NDP can raise. But like, our leader is in a great position. She hasn't fallen. Our party, even with what I hated, which was a deficit of over $5 billion, they're still staying strong. They've had caucus, like they've had some scandals that could really take them down a notch. And by scandals, I mean like people crossing the floor or getting kicked out of caucus. I mean, the AHS thing is the AHS scandal, as we always refer to it. And like, they're getting punches from everyone but the New Democrats. Like, and you can't blame you're not in the House. Like, he has also a bench that he's not leveraging. And I don't know if it's an ego thing of not wanting to put people up or step on his toes or anything, but like, man, I can't figure out what his strategy is. And I'm just like convinced that he's just praying that Danielle Smith shoots herself in the foot, and that's his path to victory. So if this keeps up, I mean, in no other circumstance would I say go early. Wait till 2027, because from a fiscal conservative standpoint, that's when they should be getting back on a true fiscal track.
But who knows? Like, who knows in this current geopolitical climate? Like, there is you can take nothing for granted in terms of the price of oil. So, I mean, that will obviously, it's a factor for any government about when.
Do you hate legislation? Like, do you hate that it's legislated? I don't know how I feel about it. Like that election dates are legislated.
No, I think it should be legislated. I think it makes it a fair playing field.
But do you agree with now? Like, I think it made more sense to put it in fall. I don't know why they put it in May, but I mean, it helped her last election. I
don't really
tit for
care that much. Yeah. But yeah, I think, I mean, hopefully, at least from my camp, some of this stuff that's happening around the UCP will do the damage itself. And anything that Naheed Nenshi could say around AHS and around the scandal and around the reports that are coming out, like, yes, of course, the NDP should frame it and tell people why they should care. But what's going to be damaging for the UCP is whatever comes out in the reports. It's whatever the UCP has or hasn't done. So some
But
of
that
that is worth.
Go
No,
ahead, go ahead.
I'm certainly not saying that everything that you just said is not true. I'm just
Mm.
saying, like, just riding the polls to the next election might not be as easy as it sounds for the UCP. There's a whole bunch of bumps along the way, not just oil, but this massive scandal.
AHS
And the AHS scandal,
Yes.
corrupt care that is currently brewing, and a whole bunch of reports that are going to come out around it, which is days and days and days of media. And we'll see what happens after that. But it's not going to be an easy road all the way to the next election.
No, definitely not. But I'm like, if we were to hold it today, she is doing the right things. I'm seeing a lack of opposition. And there's things that I think they could be talking about, right? Or some of their micro targeting of audiences. Like, I just don't see any of it, and I watch for it. So if I'm not, and I'm not going to share any things that I would do, but yeah, I'm kind of lost at what the strategy is right now. But I'm not going to share any tidbits. But you're right. Like, there's so much time between now and the next election, which I still think is 2027. You apparently think it's 2026. Yeah, but we'll see. Because they always came out and they said, like, I think fiscally it makes more sense to wait, but time might be right. Polls might be aligned. Then she might be still doing nothing, and then we'll just let her rip, like pull a Doug Ford.
You know what? We didn't talk about this, but I do. I just want to mention it because it's funny to me. Yeah. Danielle Smith has been asked by the Conservatives to stop talking throughout this entire campaign. And now the final week, I don't think the Breitbart interview was helpful.
I think she just learned that maybe that wasn't constructive. And
she learned that this was a great time for a foreign mission in the final week of the campaign.
Listen, she's talking about high-speed rail, and I wish she wasn't. So...
although I would really like a train from Calgary to Edmonton. Just saying. We could do this podcast together. We could be side by side every Wednesday. Yeah.
We have been in the same city, and you won't have me over.
It's the technicality.
I know. Difficult. I know, and your cat probably doesn't like me, but someday we'll do it together. Yeah, I would love that. I want a high-speed rail solely so that you and I can do our podcast for the billions of dollars that will cost taxpayers. Listen, if private industry wants to do it, let's go, baby. But I don't think this is a tax dollar-centric mission. Yeah.
Guess we'll see. She is in Japan. New Crown Corp.
Oh, how many is that now? We should have a tally going.
We should.
Anyways, okay, well... We're going to start our ticker for next time. But that's it for our show this week. Make sure that you set those alarms because episodes drop, and we're going to be consistent in this every Thursday at 5 a.m.
And don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.
Ciao.
The Discourse is hosted by Cheryl Oates and Erika Barudis. Follow on Instagram at The Discourse Pod. Subscribe to The Discourse on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.